You're watching the NWR Resources Conference, November 2020. With us today, we have Vulcan Energy. Vulcan Energy Resources is focused on developing a zero-carbon lithium project in Germany's Upper Rhine Valley. On the line, we have Dr. Francis Whedon. Francis Whedon founded Vulcan Energy and the Vulcan Zero Carbon Lithium Project and continues to serve as the company's managing director. Francis was previously executive director of Exore Resources, where he discovered and defined two new JORC lithium resources on 2 continents in under a year. His working background spans 3 continents and multiple commodities, and he has a track record of exploration, discovery, and resource development. Over to you, Francis.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Francis Whedon, and I'm the CEO of Vulcan Energy Resources. Vulcan was formed for 2 main reasons. One was the high carbon footprints of the existing lithium supply chain. And the other is that China effectively dominates the supply chain of lithium hydroxide, and Europe is going to be solely reliant on imports of lithium hydroxide into its market, which is the fastest growing market in the world and needs a local supply. Just a quick summary. So Vulcan is the world's first zero carbon lithium project. It's a registered trademark, and we have a unique process to give us this unique product. It's a direct lithium extraction, or DLE, and geothermal project in Germany. This gives us dual sources of revenue, both from lithium and from renewable energy. We're located in the heart of the fastest growing lithium market in the world, which is the European market now. Within this market, we have the largest lithium resource in Europe, and we've seen some growth in that resource and expect to see some growth further in the future as well. We are a very rapidly advancing lithium project, so we've gone from a standing start to completion of scoping study and hopefully soon completion of pre-feasibility study in a very short space of time. We have agreements in place. We have an agreement in place with a local geothermal operator, and we have a team of world-leading experts in country driving this forward. We're also supported by the European Union. So just the background on why we formed Vulcan in the first place. So that's the headline number we're trying to avoid. So it's been calculated that to convert all of the passenger vehicles in the world to electric, obviously that's going to need a lot of lithium, mostly lithium hydroxide, the way battery chemistries are going. And the way it's currently going, with hard rock taking the majority of the market share, if we go entirely down the hard rock route, that will produce over 1 billion tons of CO2 just from the lithium hydroxide production. So that's a very large figure that we're obviously keen to avoid, and that's equivalent to the annual emissions of the UK, France, and Italy combined. Added to that, if we're talking about supply for European auto manufacturers, well, you've got hard rock mines, which are very difficult to permit in Europe, especially open pit mines, and lithium doesn't really work for underground mines. For hard rock, the economics don't really stack up. So you've got a real problem if you want to produce local supply for the European market. Essentially, it's very difficult to permit hard rock mines. And then we have the carbon footprint of the hard rock production as well. The other current option is salars, salt lakes in South America, some from China as well. And most of these use the traditional evaporation method. Now, this has a lower carbon footprint, but has very high water consumption. And this is stressing local environments and local indigenous communities as well. There's been very strong opposition to expansion of these projects. So a problematic supply chain, to say the least. Added to that, we have the supply-demand thematic in Europe. So Europe produced roughly 20 gigawatt hours of lithium-ion cells, battery cells in 2019. This is rising to over 400 gigawatt hours in resources terms in the blink of an eye, just by 2029. So over 20 times increase. We've actually seen forecasts that put this well above 500 gigawatt hours of battery cell production. What does that mean? Well, that means that just in a few years, Europe is going to need more lithium hydroxide than the entire world consumes today. And Europe has zero local supply of lithium hydroxide. So supply demand wise, we think it's a very compelling story. Added to that, the consumers of lithium hydroxide in Europe, some of the largest consumers will be auto manufacturers such as Volkswagen, have been messaging now for nearly 2 years that they want to buy as much as possible CO2 neutral or zero carbon raw materials to go into the cathode, to go into these batteries. And they want to produce net zero carbon electric vehicles and obviously avoid the mistakes of the past with Dieselgate, etc. And this has created a market which has never existed before for low carbon or zero carbon battery raw materials. So that's where we come in. So we started with the idea of harnessing the power of geothermal brines. So you have continental style brines, which are these salars we mentioned, which are sometimes lithium rich. And you also have another type of brine called geothermal brines. These are subsurface, sometimes deep subsurface, heated brine fluids, salty fluids, and occasionally they're lithium rich. So we had the idea that we would produce renewable energy from these brines to drive a lithium extraction process. And we studied the geothermal brines of the world to see where this could be done. We need three things. We need heat in the brine, we need high lithium grades, and we need a high natural brine flow rate. So we need natural fractures within the rock that will permit us to extract the brine at a commercial rate. So we scoured the earth to look for these three conditions in one place, and really only two areas stood out to us. One was the Salton Sea in California, where a number of companies are pursuing, let's say, a similar goal, and the Upper Rhine Valley in Germany going into France. Both of these resources have similar lithium grades, and we saw the potential in Europe, so we decided to focus on Germany. Now, in the Upper Rhine Valley in Germany, it's a graben system, which is a geological term. It's probably one of the most well-explored graben systems in the world. This means that there's been decades of oil and gas and geothermal exploration over the area. This has generated a lot of data, which what that means for us is that we can acquire a lot of this data where we have our own licenses. So we have a very large license position, over 800 square kilometers of granted and application licenses for exploration licenses. So we have a very good ground position. We were able to really fast track the development of this project up until now by acquiring this existing data, so seismic data and from the surrounding areas, drilling data. And we were able to put this all together to define our main resources over three of our license areas, and we have others as well. So from just three of our license areas, so from 3 out of 6 of our license areas where we have an interest, we defined a resource which is over 16 million tons contained lithium carbonate equivalent. So that makes it the largest lithium resource in Europe. That's a mixture of inferred and indicated, and it makes it globally significant. And what this means is that we have the ability really to scale this project up as the demand in Europe grows. We can grow with that demand and hopefully increase production as well. We're located at the center of the nascent but very fast-growing market for lithium-ion battery production in Europe. Very importantly, this contains the full supply chain basically up until raw materials. So this includes cathode production as well. Very important that you have cathode production, cell production, battery production all in one place. Ultimately, it's the cathode manufacturers who use the lithium hydroxide that we produce. So in Europe, there's multiple cathode plants going up, BASF, Northvolt, Umicore, to name just a few. And so Europe is, there's a very strong push in Europe to develop this entire battery supply chain, reduce reliance on China, on Asia, for lithium-ion batteries. Bear in mind that the automotive industry in Europe is essentially the largest direct and indirect employer in Europe. Europe obviously has a very strong pedigree of producing cars and producing the engines for these cars, particularly in and around Germany. Essentially, the lithium-ion battery is now the engine of the cars of today. So obviously, it's very important for European industry that the manufacture of these engines, quote unquote, happens domestically. We are right in the center of this supply chain. So distance to markets is a cost advantage. It also reduces your carbon footprint to be closer to your market. And I don't think we could be closer if we tried. It's also worth to mention with this slide that a number of these battery factories are locating next to sources of zero carbon power. So really the whole supply chain is trying to become net zero carbon. How the process works? Well, simply we have a deep geothermal brine resource, which is rich in lithium. We plan to drill deep wells into this resource. We pump up the heated brine fluid to the surface. We produce energy from this brine, so we can produce heat directly for district heating, or we can produce electricity, which gets sold into the grid. Part of this energy we use to drive a direct lithium extraction process. So before the brine gets reinjected, we use a DLE process to take the lithium out of the brine, and we then use the heat to concentrate up the brine as well. So we're using the readily available energy from our brine to drive the extraction process. The spent brine then gets reinjected, and we end up with a lithium chloride concentrate. That lithium chloride concentrate gets concentrated up further and then gets transported to a central processing plant where lithium hydroxide can be produced. And we expect to be a net power generator, which means that we're producing renewable energy and displacing coal on the German grid, hence the very low, in fact, negative carbon footprint. At a high level, the project is broken down into three main parts. The binary cycle geothermal plants, this has already been done in the Upper Rhine Valley where we are. Multiple new projects and developments as well as ours. So we'd say that this is fairly vanilla, and one of the core competencies of our team is in fact developing these projects. They've done it before and they can do it again. Direct lithium extraction. This is less well known even in the lithium industry, but according to studies we've seen, direct lithium extraction projects accounted for about 10% of global lithium chemicals production last year. So we intend to use commercially mature technologies from mature vendors for this project, and we intend to use proven technologies for this project. Now, DLE has been used on continental brines and is used on continental brines. Livent uses it at their Salar de Hombre-Muerto operation. There's a number of operations in China that uses it. It hasn't been used commercially on geothermal brines yet. There have been some large pilot demonstrations in Salton Sea in California. According to test work that we've done so far, it seems to work well with our brine. We have over 90% recoveries. So we expect it to work well. Obviously, we need to scale this up and de-risk as we go, but so far so good. And then we have the final part, which is lithium chloride to lithium hydroxide production, which is a fairly standard process, industry standard process as well. A bit more detail, the brine comes up at 165 degrees C. We take about 100, or depending on where you are in the system, that's an average temperature. You take about 100 Kelvin out of the brine. So after the geothermal energy plant, you're left with fluid at about 65 degrees C. Then that goes to the DLE plant. And at the end, we end up with a premium branded zero carbon lithium product that we have the trademark for, and we have IP protection around this flow sheet as well. This is just going into some more detail on how the project structure looks. So essentially, we'll have multiple geothermal project sites spread across our license areas. This is obviously dictated by the geology and also by conditions on the surface, depending on where we're able to put the plants. We will have multiple wells, production wells per plant. These will be feeding the geothermal plant shown here in red. And then we have the DLE plant attached to it. And these multiple plants will feed into the central lithium processing plant. And we're looking at a number of different locations for this chemical plant. This will most likely be located at a chemical park somewhere in the region. And we can decarbonize the transport of the lithium chloride to the central processing plant as well. We can use electric trucks and we can use barges as well, because we're just next to the Rhine River. So quite a neat solution there. In terms of our carbon footprint, well, this has been calculated at essentially negative compared to hard rock projects, which produce about 13 to 15 tons CO2 per ton of lithium hydroxide. Solars, as we said, lower carbon footprint, but much higher water footprint, not shown here. So we really think this is a product that's fit for the European market. What that means in terms of an auto manufacturer, well, in terms of a Volkswagen, they're aiming to produce 28 million electric vehicles by 2028. That means about 90 million tons of CO2 production from just the lithium production alone. So not accounting for the nickel, the cobalt, et cetera, that will go into these electric vehicles. It's a significant footprint. We do expect there to be penalties for this footprint because we expect there to be a battery passport coming out soon. It's been messaged by the European Commission, which will detail the carbon footprint of batteries produced or used in Europe. And we expect there to be penalties for high carbon offerings. So we can help. We can essentially turn that into a negative carbon footprint for the lithium production. Just worth mentioning as well that we plan to produce lithium hydroxide. We believe will be a very low cost operation. There will be a significant capex, we expect. This will be finalized obviously as part of the PFS, but we believe this will be more than compensated for by the low operating cost based on the fact that brine projects are the lowest cost method of lithium hydroxide production in the world, but we have the added advantage of readily available heat to drive our process. So we will have the revenue from the lithium hydroxide. In addition to that, Germany has a fixed feed-in tariff of 25 cents per kilowatt hour for renewable electricity that we produce, and that's fixed for 20 years from when the project starts under the German renewable energy law. So that revenue from the geothermal energy really underpins the project economics, and once again makes us kind of unique in the resources space. We are a renewable energy development company as well as a resources development company as well. Just a quick note on our board. So myself, I come from a hard rock lithium background, as mentioned. I'm a geologist by training, PhD in exploration geology. Dr. Horst Kreuter is our geothermal expert and founded the company with me, and Horst has been developing geothermal projects in the Upper Rhine Valley for decades now, and has been behind some of the most successful developments there. Horst comes with his own development team on the geothermal side, who are experts in the area. Gavin Rizos as well brings us that sort of big company experience. Rani Al-Kedamani is our ESG expert. We have a very strong technical team. This is one of our main strengths. We have experts in the DLE space. Alex Grant and Dr. Katarina Gerber are DLE experts, and I think one of a handful in the world that we're very lucky to have in-house. Dr. Katarina Gerber has been working on brines in the Salton Sea before on lithium extraction from geothermal air. Alex Grant co-founded a DLE technology company, so very useful to have that in-house. And Dr. Thomas Eicher is our senior chemical engineer, former KIT and MIT, and responsible for the scale-up of our process. Vincent Pedias as well is recently joined us, leading the charge on the business development and targeting offtake agreements with European offtakers, assisted by Jochen Rudat, who's a former Tesla director for Central Europe, and he was with Tesla for 10 years. So a very strong technical team. And then we have a number of geologists, geochemists, and chemical processing experts at our office in Karlsruhe, which is local to the project area. I mentioned we are also backed by a European Union backed group, which is EIC InnoEnergy, and they will be assisting us with fast tracking and obtaining the necessary licenses for the project, and also assisting us with offtake discussions. Where we are currently, we've completed the scoping study. Our PFS, our pre-feasibility study, is our main focus now. We intend to complete that by the end of the year. So that's on track for December. Next year, we want to focus on offtake and our DFS. So we're very excited about next year. We have a very full schedule and a lot of strong targets for the team next year as we build up to that DFS, and we're aiming to complete the DFS by the end of the year. So an exciting year ahead for the team. Cap structure outlined there has moved a lot today. It's a very fast moving target at the moment. Cash position of roughly 5 million and market cap, I think last time I saw is north of 150 mil now. Management speaks for 20% of the register. And that's it. So just to wrap up, world's first and only zero carbon lithium process, unique product, dual revenue, both from renewable energy and from lithium production. We have EU backing for the projects. We have Europe's largest lithium resource. We're at the center of the world's fastest growing lithium market. We have local agreements in place. We have the right team for the job, and we are moving this forwards extremely quickly. So thank you very much, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Francis. A couple of questions for you. If you could just recap for us what the permitting timeline looks like.
The permitting timeline, was that, sorry? Yeah.
Yes.
So we intend to be in production by sort of late 2023, early 2024. And we intend to have the permits in place next year to drill our first production wells. And it's a process, obviously, of getting the various permits that we need for building the DLE plant and the geothermal plants and the chemical processing plant. So we've mapped out a timeline essentially that takes us to that first production in late 2023, early 2024.
Can you touch on the project economics from the scoping study, perhaps giving more detail to things like CapEx and OpEx and production capacity?
Unfortunately, I'm not permitted to. We obviously wanted to release these when the scoping study came out, because the scoping study was based on a majority inferred resource. We weren't permitted to release the CapEx, OpEx, NPV, IRR. However, we hope to share those figures very, very shortly as part of our PFS, and now we have a lot more indicated resources. Obviously in the project, we've had some updates on that recently. So as part of that PFS, we hope to share those numbers very, very soon. I can say though that and based off existing geothermal projects, deep geothermal projects that are out there, existing brine projects, DLE projects, you can expect this to be a high CapEx operation, but you're effectively building two businesses. So you're building a renewable energy business and you're building a lithium business. So for that reason, we expect the project economics to be strong and also de-risked to a degree, because you're getting that stable revenue coming from that fixed feed-in tariff. So that really underpins the project economics. And really, we can actually, if something happens to the lithium market, we could turn down the lithium production and still produce renewable energy, which would assist with paying back capital. So it's a real strength of this operation to have those dual revenue streams.
Well, what funding options are you considering for the German project, if you can answer that?
Yeah, so I guess we're in discussions. It's early days yet. I mean, we haven't released our PFS yet. However, we're big believers in obviously warming up the right parties. So we've been having discussions with development banks in Europe and typical providers of project finance. So we'll keep our options open. I would say there is strong interest in Europe to support this project. It really aligns with the objectives of the European Green Deal. So we expect to get strong support from banks over there.
Thank you. And we've got time for one more question. Any questions that haven't been answered on the call, we'll pass on to Francis and the company. The way Vulcan is bringing its geothermal lithium project to market is different to most, Francis. How long has it taken for you to get market acceptance of your approach?
Well, it's certainly an education process. Geothermal is very well known in this area in Germany where we operate, but lithium is less well known, and vice versa. In Australia, the lithium space is well known, but the geothermal space is perhaps less well known. So it's definitely a process, educating both sides of the coin. I think we've done a sort of a reasonable job of that so far. So we've been putting out research articles on sort of the style of geothermal energy production that we'll use and the style of lithium extraction that we'll use as well. So it's definitely a process. It's an ongoing process. I expect it to continue. I think we've done a reasonable job so far in sort of educating people as to how it's going to work. Yes,
and the share price has increased significantly over the last 12 months. Do you attribute that to broader market education, or what do you put that down to?
Well, I mean, I think we've been kicking some technical goals with the project. The team's been working very hard on bringing all of this together, and we've had multiple resource updates over the past past few months, and we've also had successful lithium extraction test work results. So I think it's certainly we have been having some successes on the technical front, and I think that's getting recognition in the market. I think we're certainly assisted by some very strong tailwinds, which is very quick switch in Europe to electric vehicles. We saw Norway at over 80% of vehicles sold last month were electric. In Germany, which is a much larger market, that was in the high teens, and expanding very, very quickly. A number of countries have declared that they're going fully electric by 2030 or 2035. That's not far away. And we've obviously had the US election as well, which is, I guess, providing more support for spending on renewable energies and switch to electric vehicles as well. So we've definitely got strong tailwinds, but I think the team has done a great job over the last few months.
So thank you so much, Francis. Might leave it there for today, but thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Laura. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.